The following podcast is made possible by the generous support of Paradigm Learning. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Andrew Bateman. Thanks for joining us on this HCI podcast. Today, we are joined by Jason Reid, Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Paradigm Learning, who's been gracious enough to join us today to talk a little bit about business acumen training. Jason, thanks for being here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Andrew.
So, Jason, in your conversations with HR leaders and folks that are in the marketplace at large, you're probably hearing a lot about the specific pain points and things that they've found to be particularly challenging. So, I'd like to start off with a quick question. In your opinion, what is it that keeps senior leaders up at night?
Yeah, well, at first blush, there's probably a lot of things. But here's the way I'll answer this, Andrew. Certainly, from our vantage point, selling pretty much exclusively into human resources for 20 years now, Paradigm Learning, it is crystal clear and evident to us that great news, human resources is increasingly having their credibility elevated inside of organizations. In many cases, they have a seat at the table now, so to speak. And like you're well aware, there are chief human resources officers springing up inside of company management teams all over the place. So we've seen kind of firsthand, had a front row of this trajectory in the world of human resources leadership, and it's very exciting. And that's the good news. I think one of the things that likely keeps up the human resources leaders that we work with, that they are challenged with, is the appreciation and understanding that what comes along with that ascension is the expectation that a certain level of business acumen, financial literacy, just general grounding and an understanding of what are the drivers behind my business, my company, and being able to have conversations and be comfortable with that whole financial literacy and the lexicon that goes with it. Consequently, in a position to defend business cases and points of view when you are at that table. I know for human resources leaders, a lot of times it's wrapped around this notion of return on investment, human capital. And in today's data-driven world, it's becoming increasingly less soft and less about intuition and instinct and more about what is the science behind the numbers. So I would say that we have a lot of senior leaders are telling us that perhaps more so than ever, they are appreciative of the need to elevate the general kind of business acumen, financial acumen of folks inside of that function and that are in the world of human resources, and that this idea that is a soft function is no longer the case, and to the extent it is, they're going to struggle.
So you mentioned that there is a movement to get HR more involved in sort of the day-to-day operations of the business, and it makes me think that without executive sponsorship and the buy-in that is required in order to do that it really probably can't get off the ground. So perhaps you could share with us your opinions on the role that the senior leadership plays in getting that involvement, that support, and how that applies to the overall success of a particular program.
Yeah, well, I mean, it probably no surprise and goes without saying that, senior sponsorship, very senior leadership's support and sponsorship of initiatives, like you say, is key in every single case. And in fact, I would say in our experience, in some cases, it's the single most important attribute that drives the success of a program or an initiative or a business objective. It's simply that consequential. When senior executives are engaged, involved, and sort of behind it, I think the impact of the program is exponentially affected in a positive way, and conversely, when they are not as engaged or at arm's length, we often see marginal impact or programs that don't have the efficacy as the others. And certainly there's a couple of reasons for that. One that strikes me would be just the sheer symbolism. It's hard to overstate the value of having very senior leadership inside of a company get behind something and say, this is a priority. You individually are a priority. Your position is important. The decisions you make matter to the bigger picture, and we want to invest in you. So all that comes with that, I might wrap that, in the bucket of symbolism is invaluable. And then finally, in a more practical manner, when senior executives are involved in the programs from the beginning and they believe in it, the way it plays out is a better, more precisely customized engagement that captures nuance and accounts for arcane realities of the individual business or company that otherwise can be lost in that all-important customization, due diligence, design phase of a program. However, when they're involved, you greatly increase the chances that the deliverable is going to come out in a way that is precise and does uniquely account for the nuances that I mentioned, et cetera, and consequently you have programs that are rich and have efficacy.
So, to get back to business acumen as being a priority, you mentioned that getting that senior leadership support is obviously tantamount to a program's overall success. Maybe you could share a little bit, why is it that when it comes to folks in HR, why should business acumen be kind of the first step in sort of getting that seat at the table to actually be something that's strategic and supported?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I don't know that it absolutely is the first step. I can tell you that it's unequivocally on the very short list of priorities that I think leaders inside of the HR world should consider tantamount to holding their own, to having the seat at the table that you talk about, making credible business cases, and critically thinking in a way that peers, leaders in other functions can appreciate. So in that vein, business acumen, I like to think of the actual definition. Acumen itself, the word acumen, basically means the ability to make good judgments, smart, quick, kind of shrewd decision-making on any particular domain. For example, LeBron James would have exceptional acumen when it comes to basketball. We happen to be talking about business acumen. So it sort of goes without saying that having smart, confident, savvy understanding of your business, your position, the business you work in, the role you're in, and the interdependencies to the rest of the company are just a requisite. I think perhaps a better question for you and I right now than should business acumen be a priority would be this idea: is business acumen perhaps should be more of a priority today in today's marketplace than ever before? Should it be on the very shortest of lists for top priorities, L&D organizations, CEOs, et cetera, in terms of how they want to invest in their people in today's market, when in fact maybe a short 5, 6, 10 years ago, it was more of a second tier or a nice to have skill set? And I would say absolutely that's the case. And it's a case for one reason, and that is increasingly all of business, like we know, is becoming data-driven. And as a result of businesses, forever seeking to mine data, to work with so-called big data to make smarter, critical decisions that are driven by data. That unto itself puts a premium on having a pretty solid business acumen if you want to be a credible leader inside of an organization that, like I said, can hold your own, et cetera. So I generally, it's my own opinion that business acumen's always been a valuable, nice to have, whether you're an HR manager, a salesperson, or a sales leader in some other function, a business leader in some other function. But in today's marketplace, it is table stakes. And more or less that's driven by how much decisions lean up against data today, and they didn't so much in the past. So understanding data, having the acumen to get the story behind the numbers, and then make some intellectual connections there, in large parts of the name of the game in business today, regardless of what industry you're in. And I would also say in that light, business acumen is more of a priority than ever before.
So that kind of leads me to a follow-up question on that. Is obviously in the past, in the old world of work, employees had whole careers to sort of understand their place in the business and how their role contributed to the bottom line. I think now that's obviously a different scenario, and so what is it about business acumen training that allows employees to get up to speed quickly around the entire business as a whole, and then of course how their own role contributes to it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of ways that a company or an organization can decide that they want to prioritize the elevation of organizational business acumen. I mean, that's a vision, that's a business objective of a lot of senior leaders inside of companies today. It's kind of a white-hot notion, and that is, hey, we want to elevate the business acumen organizationally of all of our folks, regardless of what role they sit in, whether or not it's senior management, middle management, individual contributors, or folks sitting on a plant floor. Because in theory, to the extent the folks in the organization understand the business, how money flows through it, how profit is measured and made, they will make better decisions when they go back into their respective roles. And in aggregate, that kind of savvy, that kind of overall organizational edification of our business operations will pay off. And, the most obvious ways are day in and day out decisions that people inside of companies make theoretically will be made from a smarter vantage point with an appreciation for interdependencies, implications, etc. And there's a bunch of ways that business acumen can be delivered and trained. I think that historically companies have sort of sequestered a financial leader or an individual inside of their company and had them put together a PowerPoint deck of sorts and send them on a road show to go around to the different regions and get in front of people and try to give them a Cliff Notes version on, hey, here's our company's balance sheet, here's what an income statement is, here's how we make money, etc. And that kind of PowerPoint droning on, delivered by an internal financial person to folks who sit in the room in a sort of asynchronous way is antiquated. Research has proven it does not stick, and you often end up with a bunch of cynical people a half an hour into what is otherwise mundane subject matter in a lot of cases. So what has happened in the corporate training world in recent couple of years is some really smart, progressive thinking about how to take information like financial literacy, business acumen, and distill it down into custom business games, business simulations that large, Fortune 1000 companies can deploy across the organization in whatever depth they'd like, and know that the way it's going to be executed is in an engaging, exciting, highly tactile, fun, oftentimes competitive way, and a way that has the information sticking. And that's really the name of the game. Can we inculcate this kind of information, this kind of understanding, this kind of expertise into a group of our people? Subsequent to the deployment or rollout of the engagement and training, it's meaningful. And there's a lot of smart, creative ways that that's being done today that do not involve PowerPoint at all, do not involve a traditional facilitator kind of trainer per se at all, but rather involve some highly engaging, intense, relevant gaming elements and customized simulation that has people really sort of geeked up, and by the time they get done with it, feeling like they're a hell of a lot smarter about their company or business than they ever were before. And this goes for people who even have more senior titles and may have been in their roles for a long time. And inevitably, there are a lot of powerful takeaways from a well-done business acumen training program. And I think that's why it's, kind of generally speaking, in the world of corporate training, it's a very hot topic, and there's a lot of MO behind it because senior folks want their people to think like they do.
So, Jason, we were lucky enough on HCI to see an example from one of your clients around how business acumen was kind of their secret sauce on our webcast. But I'd love to get your take on this and find out what you've seen with some of the results around the business acumen training, especially when it's been supported by senior leadership, and how that's led to larger organizational improvement and, of course, a change in the organizational culture.
Yeah, well, I think when it's done right, like we talked about earlier, it absolutely can shift culture and drive business performance. I think, theoretically that's true, and in a practical sense, given the business that we're in at Paradigm, we see it day in and day out. I think culturally it's a big one, because if you think about everything we're talking about right now, it generally sends a message. It screams of, hey, you are important to our company, regardless of where you sit in it. You matter. Your decisions matter. We really would like you to understand more comprehensively the big picture of how money flows through our company. So when you make the decisions that you are empowered to make, you make them from a basis of knowledge and confidence. And as a result, we're going to invest in you to elevate that acumen, that understanding, and that, I think, sort of by definition just is you're important, you matter, and we want you to really get how interdependent our entire outfit is, and we don't win unless you're comfortable and you win too. So there's not many topics I don't think that you can invest in terms of employees that sends a message more of, hey, this is open kimono. We want you to understand the business. We're going to share with you the financials. We want you to get grounded at least in the key performance indicators that we track and the drivers, because you're important to our future. So it has all the makings for the cultural stuff that you talk about. In terms of the performance of the business, similarly, there are just some amazing examples from client partnerships that we have at Paradigm of unbelievable ROI associated with these custom business acumen program simulations that we create for clients. They're measured and tracked in different ways. Oftentimes, it can be from waste reduction inside of a consumer products company to software development efficiencies in the software industry, financial services, manufacturing. In every case, our partnerships measure their performance and track ROI in unique ways, and we build the sustainment and action plans with them that follow subsequent to the program rollouts, and then we track the progress of the action items and the commitments that people make to do what they can, given the role that they're in, to drive company performance. And we have customers that have moved their margin by 10 to 12 points based off of the significant investment in time, energy, and money they made in elevating the understanding of their business to their people. And then we have other companies that have been really smartly had people that go through the programs identify 2 or 3 action commitments they can make coming out of the program, so when they get back in their role in their respective job function, that they will get after, that is intended to either cut costs or increase efficiencies and grow top line. Just depends where they sit in the company. So again, the subject matter lends itself to some really clever, cool, sort of easy to measure activities that live on as a tail post program and allow ROI to be measured easily.
Well, Jason, I want to thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. We really look forward to hearing more about this in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew.
So, for those interested in learning more about this topic, head over to hci.org and watch the webcast from Paradigm Learning, which is titled Learn How Business Acumen Training is the Secret Sauce for FIS. This concludes this edition of the HCI Podcast series, but be sure to look out for new HCI podcasts when they are posted on our site as well as on YouTube, or you can subscribe to HCI Podcasts on iTunes or Stitcher Smart Radio. We would like to thank our sponsor, Paradigm Learning, for making this podcast possible, and I'll close this with a reminder to our listeners to join us on the web at hci.org for more information on this and other topics.